Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Beware the Batman. This series only ran for one season. It came out in 2013 and ended in 2014. It was created by Glenn Murakami, who created Teen Titans and worked on the Justice League series and Batman Beyond series. But he created Teen Titans, the cartoon series. This series aired for about the first 4 months on Cartoon Network, and then it went to its Toonami section. Why? Because fans did not like it. This is considered probably the least favorite Batman series amongst the DC fans. For me personally, it's my least favorite. Because I love Batman. He's my favorite DC hero. I've loved every cartoon series, like solo cartoon series he's been a part of, ever since Batman, the animated series. I love Batman Beyond. I love the Batman. Same with like Batman Brave and the Bold. But this series I couldn't love it. Don't get me wrong, it's not entirely terrible, but it's not entirely great as well. And it's quite a shame because Glenn created it and he did such a great job with Teen Titans. The problem with this series is that it's very slow paced, it's very bleak, it's very boring and everything, and it changes way too much of the mythos of Batman for fans to really grab onto it. The thing about Teen Titans is that it was bright, it was colorful, it was fun. They changed things as well, but they kept enough of what made Teen Titans Teen Titans. I mean, Teen Titans on Cartoon Network was so memorable, so beloved that non-comic book fans like myself grew to love the Teen Titans and recognize their villains because going into the show, I only knew who Robin was. Now I know who every comic book villain and hero there is now from that show. And that's the impact you're supposed to have. Here, not so much. I remember Professor Pig, but that's about it. Now, when it comes to this series, it's very different than normally what you would expect a Batman series to be. First of all, it's the first Batman solo series to be in 3D. Normally, DC stuff is in 2D. One of the things that I've noticed that's very interesting that the majority of the main cast are big name celebrities, like TV and movie stars, with very little voice actors playing certain roles. Now, this isn't new. However, normally when a big name person comes in, they play a guest spot, not the main, series regulars and stuff. Everybody in here, for the most part, is new that I don't recognize, except for Gray and except for Tara Strong. Gray plays Magpie, and Tara Strong plays that of Barbara Gordon, a teenager who takes up the mantle of Oracle later on in the series. She's not paraplegic, and she's never been Batgirl, but she's a huge fan of Batman. Now, I think one major problem with this is that it tried to be live action. It tried to have that feel of live action. It tried to be that of a live action series. Christopher Nolan Batman series was in its second run with The Dark Knight Rises, I believe. Yeah, I think it was The Dark Knight Rises. Or maybe it was The Dark Knight. I can't remember. It was one of those two. It came out in 2013. And the problem with that is that this is animation, not live action. If you make it too serious, too realistic, then it starts to lose its fun appeal to it. And that's something it lost for me. It was just felt so boring and bleak. And as watching episodes, I'm just kind of when is the next episode? Now, I've only watched this once and a half in its entirety, a couple of years back. I think on that DC Universe thing they had, because I didn't even watch it when it came out on TV. And also, currently on HBO Max, but I just couldn't finish it for a second time. I'm just I'm done. I'm just done. It's so boring and everything. Now, I can respect the fact that they tried to be their own thing. I can always respect that. And like I said before, not every episode is terrible, and but for the most part, the first half of this series, because it's called Beware the Batman, yet you never really get the feeling that Batman's this big, scary, brooding character and everything, even right down to his voice. The actor who plays Batman, he's not terrible, but it gets some used to getting used to his voice. He doesn't sound like your traditional, like deep voiced Batman. It sounds like he has a frog in his throat. And after a while, that can get very annoying. Like I remember when the Batman with Reno Romano, it took a while to get used to his voice as well, but he has more of a smooth like darkness to his voice. And for the most part, I'm like, okay, whatever. Plus, I'm used to hearing his voice. But this one, I just feel like he doesn't fit the profile of Batman. He just doesn't sound like Batman. Not only is Batman not really all that scary, in my opinion, but the first half of the series, it doesn't even revolve around Batman or Bruce Wayne. It revolves around more of Katana and a little bit of Alfred. I don't really particularly like this misdirection because it's supposed to be a solo Batman series. If they wanted to create that, most likely they probably wanted to create their own Katana series, but because she's not well known, people probably would not have like watched it. But I mean, people watch Samurai Jack, so take a risk. Even though Samurai Jack has nothing to do with DC, but you'll find out later what I mean. Towards the second half of it, it revolves a bit more around Batman, especially towards the end when he forms that of the Outsiders. I don't know what's up with Batman animation lately. Every newer Batman show, he's always forming a team towards the end. And if he was gonna form a team, why couldn't he just form the Bat family? That's right. The Bat family does not exist in this series. There are no Robins whatsoever. There's not even a Bat girl or a Bat woman. And so Katana is actually his sidekick, which is weird and bizarre. I remember hearing about this a long time ago, and I'm just like, why is she his sidekick? And I don't even know who she is at that time. Now, she's only appeared in live action once or twice. I think in the Arrowverse and also in the very first Suicide Squad movie. And so she's never really had that big of a role in like the Suicide Squad movie, and she doesn't even wear her traditional costume or mask. But here, what's really weird and bizarre is that she starts off as like his bodyguard, Bruce Wayne's bodyguard. And then later on, she keeps the secret of the Soul Sword and the League of Assassins, this and that. And so Batman ends up firing her, but he only tests her out. When she saves the life of Bruce Wayne, he knows he can trust her with that of his identity and all that. She wants to fight with him alongside in the field. He doesn't want to, but he lets her. And it's weird because she's trained by the League of Assassins, but he still wants to train her more and feels she's not ready to fight crime. He even gives her one of those big protective suits, kind of like those fake sumo wrestler type suits, you know, when you like practice in and stuff. Like he gives her that and is all like, you're gonna wear that in the field. That don't make no sense for her to wear that in the field. So what does she wear? She wears her regular clothes and she just wears a domino mask, carrying a sword. And it's kind of like, if people see you hanging around Bruce Wayne wearing your regular clothes and your regular hairstyle, they didn't even change it up, how are they gonna think you're somebody completely different wearing a domino mask? See, this is the stupidity of this show. Glenn Murakami should know better than this. And what's weird is that she has the personality traits of every Robin that came before her. She's chatty and plucky like Dick Grayson. She's smart like Tim Drake. She's rude and has a chip on her shoulder like Jason Todd. She has daddy issues and is like hard-headed, just like Stephanie Brown. She is she's just like very gung-ho about wanting to be Batman's partner. Like, what's her name? Carrie something? Carrie Kelly. And she has ties to the League of Assassins and Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, just like Damian Wayne. And so the question is, if she's gonna have all the personality traits of all the Robins, and the first half deals with that of the League of Assassins and everything, and Ra's al Ghul, why not just make her Damian and just do something like that? That would have made a whole lot more sense. Barbara Gordon is shown to be a teenager, and she's just a huge Batman stan to the part where she's just like a master hacker. And so Jim Gordon is very unlikable in the beginning. He's very mean, grumpy, and rude, and he hates Batman and wants to arrest him until Barbara is kidnapped, and then he lightens up to that of Batman, creating the Bat Signal to like summon him because he needs help finding Barbara. But after that, he's a bit of a coward. Like when Ra's al Ghul, I hate his name. When Ra's al Ghul was gonna like take over Gotham, Gordon's all like, Barbara, pack a bag. We need to get out of here before all the crazies run over the streets. I'm just like, dude, you're a cop. You're supposed to like protect the streets. But that's the type of cop that they made him out to be. But now he's on the side of Batman. Another problem a lot of fans and myself had with this was Alfred. Alfred is still older, but he's bald now, and he's brute. He's like grumpier, he's bigger, and he has ties to that of Katana and the League of Assassins. He did the whole MI5 thing, or MI6, or whatever you call it, and he was supposed to take down Ra's al Ghul. This comes into conflict with Katana's father, and her father ended up sacrificing himself, and Alfred got away. That was like his best friend. So because of that, like, he helped, like, Katana get into these big Ivy League schools and this and that. And then she later became the bodyguard of like Bruce Wayne when he hired her and stuff. And so he kept all that hidden from Bruce. Now, she assumed that, her father just died from natural circumstances, but Ra's al Ghul lied and said that, Alfred killed your father. So she believes him and wants to kill Alfred. But then later finds out the truth when Alfred just happens to tell her, and then all of a sudden she believes it. Because her father's soul is stuck in that sword. Ra's al Ghul's soul is stuck in the sword as well. So Lady Shiva wants to, free him and everything. And so does Silver Monkey. Now, back to the whole Alfred thing. Another thing that pissed fans off about Alfred, he doesn't act like Alfred. He doesn't act like a butler whatsoever. He doesn't even dress like a butler. And he calls Bruce Wayne Bruce. Not Master Wayne, not Master Bruce, just Bruce. Like he's like, he acts more like a bodyguard than anything else. Another thing that pissed fans off is that in the promotional pictures, you see Alfred wielding 2 guns. And you see him out in the field with Batman. This angered fans because Batman has a no killing rule, a no gun rule, and he has Alfred out in the field just dressed as like a butler. And like, so people are going to recognize Bruce Wayne's butler hanging out with Batman. Glenn Murakami is all like, oh no, this was just a leaked photo. This is supposed to show like more of an action-packed series. And Alfred doesn't like carry guns and he's not out in the field and blah, 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 blah. He's going to be your traditional butler, but he doesn't act like a butler. And in fact, he does accompany Bruce into the field at least twice. And one time he's carrying a rocket launcher. And it's kind of like, okay. Now, another reason for the whole gun thing, it had to be recreated. See, originally they had traditional guns, and as you can see, Alfred had traditional guns in the promotional picture, but they later had to change it to more of those laser type guns. Why? Because of that idiot that shot up a movie theater during the Dark Knight movie coming out. And so because of that, they had to change like all the guns and like, the cartoon, the laser guns. I don't really have too much of a problem with that because I'm used to seeing laser guns and like things like Spider-Man, the animated series and stuff like that. And also the Batman, but it is just kind of weird at times, you know what I'm saying? And so like already this lets you know this isn't your traditional Batman cartoon. Another thing that angered fans was the fact that None of Batman's like more famous rogue gallery is gonna be in this series. There's no Joker, there's no Penguin, there's no Two-Face, there's Harvey Dent, but there's no Two-Face. There's no Riddler, there's no Catwoman, there's no Poison Ivy. This was weird because this was a huge gamble, and unfortunately it caused them to lose. Who did they bring in? C and D list villains. Villains people have never heard of. Professor Pig, Mad Pie, Anarchy, Cypher. Those were the main villains of this entire series. And people are just kind of like, well, who the heck are they? Unless you're a huge comic book fan. I am not. I had no idea. And unlike the Batman that had his traditional villains but redesigned them and gave them a new backstory, here it's just there's nothing memorable about them. There's nothing cool about them. There's nothing that excites people about them because it's a very bleak series. And then towards the second half, they just started bringing Harvey Dent as a district attorney who's out to get Batman. He works alongside Anarchy and everything. But then they started bringing in more animal related chemical manipulation DNA type stuff. So they started bringing in Man Bat. They started bringing in Killer Croc. And yeah, those are people that Batman fans recognize, but you don't want to see them be the main protagonist for the full second half of the season. Because this series, even though it is episodic, it's also serialized and stuff. The first half had to do with the League of Assassins, and the second half had to do more with animal manipulation and stuff like that. And it was just strange and bizarre. It's kind of like, because of this, I now recognize Professor Pig, especially when he showed up in the Batwoman series. But here, he's more laughable than anything else. He hangs around some type of man-toad, and I don't understand that. And the man-toad has, like, sonic vibrations. I still don't know who that dude is. Also, Professor Pig. Professor Pig is supposed to be one very gruesome Batman villain. Supposed to be more gruesome than the Joker, and especially with his scalpel or knife. Here, he never wields a scalpel or a knife. So he's not really all that scary. He's just more silly with the car he drives and his companion that he rides around in. And so, for the most part, this series, it just isn't really all that great. Yeah, Barbara Gordon becomes Oracle towards the second half, but not the way you expect, and she's never Batgirl. Now, as for the CGI stuff, I'm not particularly a huge fan of it. I like my Batman stuff or my DC stuff to be hand-drawn 2D animation. And here, it just has that, it doesn't have that video game CGI feel. It has more of that, kids movie, like CGI looking stuff. And it doesn't come off as cool as like other things. Like, think of Jimmy Neutron, but like in a more adult looking style. And so it has that awkward mouth movement that CGI stuff has. Batman costume itself is actually fine. I actually like his costume to a certain degree. I love that it's all black like the live action movie. That's something people always wanted to see, but it's hard to do in 2D animation because all the black blends in together. However, it's more of a dark gray, his entire suit is. Also, what's weird is that it has a weird pattern texture to it. Like that weird rubber stuff that you used to see in the very first live action Batman movie, the Tim Burton one. And so it's throughout his entire costume. And it just has a weird, glossy, chewing gum, rubbery kind of effect to it. And so the back suit looks weird in that regard. Now, when you see Katana wearing a leather jacket, that looks fine. It looks like real leather, that shiny leather that people wear. And I wish Batman's suit looked more like that. His suit, the design is cool. It's just the texture and the material looks weird and rubbery looking. Another weird thing is that his cowl is okay. It's just that where did his forehead go? When you see him out of the suit, you see he has a forehead and you see he has hair. When he puts on his cowl, all of a sudden his head is squished down and everything, or his forehead is. And it's like, where did it go? Like, that's really weird and bizarre. one very annoying thing is that they gave Batman one time a bow staff to fight with, which is weird. He doesn't fight with a bow staff. Another thing that's really weird is that they really wanted to emphasize the distinct personalities of Batman and Bruce Wayne. Both characters call each other by their name. Like, say Batman's talking to Alfred, he's all like, Batman does this, but Bruce Wayne thinks differently. And he keeps referring to Bruce Wayne as like the third person, even though he is Bruce Wayne. And they do that throughout the entire series. And it's very annoying. Like, we get the point. Bruce Wayne, in his mind, died as a little kid, and then out came Batman. But other series have done that as well in movies, but they don't drag it on in every episode. And so it's just very strange, and it's very, very, very bizarre that he keeps referring to himself as two completely different people with two completely different personalities and everything else. And even the other characters distinct the different personalities, like, like Alfred be like, Batman does this, but Bruce Wayne does that. And for the most part, I don't know what the end credits look like because I never like stopped to look at them. But I do know on HBO Max, if you scroll down during the episode section and you keep scrolling down to where it gets like to the names and stuff like that, it'll be all like Bruce Wayne played by this actor, Batman played by this actor, but they're the same actor. That don't make no sense. And so I get the fact they had to be different from that of every Batman property that came out. And they wanted to do their own thing. Only problem is they tried far too hard to create their own Batman mythos. And they should have brought in more familiar characters that people know. And the CG just didn't work. Like, every time Batman runs, he looks very weird every time he runs. Whereas everybody else, when they run, it's very normal. I can respect them for their originality, but at that same time, it's kind of like it just didn't work out the way the Batman or Batman Beyond or Teen Titans did. It's one of those things that, like, it just fell off a cliff and they didn't even realize it. Like, when it came to his utility belt, which is completely redesigned, it has a weird, unique shape to it. They made it out of cardboard and they gave it to Glenn to wear around because they all like, oh, if it looks practical in real life, it'll look great on the television screen. That's not how it always works out. Like, even his grappler is weird. It has a weird, unique design that serves no real purpose and everything. And I don't know what the thought process of was. They were trying to be too much like Christopher Nolan. Like, Christopher Nolan went in his garage, he created the Bat Tumbler out of clay to see what it would look like in real life, to get like a visual shape. They tried the same thing here and it just didn't pay off. Animation is animation and live action is completely different. If you try to make an animated series completely like live action, it's just not gonna work. It's just like a crime drama. In a police crime drama, it's not 100% realistic. Why? Because if it was, one, it would be super boring, and two, it would be super depressing. And that's how this series was. It was boring, and it just felt depressing when you watched it. And as a result, they had to do this as a tax write-down, as a huge failure, and scrub it clean from that of their television network. That is how bad of a failure this show is. And it's sad because it's Batman. Like, you never would assume Batman would be like a failure. But that's what happens when you create a very bleak, boring show. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.